Well, I'll tell you what, people. I am on my back today. Um, uh, I am having such a problem with my lumbar spine that I literally can't do very much. So, um, I also did not get the samples from Macy's yet. Whether they're going to send them or not, I don't know. I'm kind of thinking maybe not. Maybe they'll get here. I don't know. But meanwhile, what we're going to do today is we're going to take a trip down memory lane through the 80s, which is when I sort of grew up and grew into smelling perfumes. And we're going to start with the two that I wore myself the most, which is KL by Karl Lagerfeld and um, Diva by Emmanuel Ungaro. So we're going to start there and we're going to keep going. Okay, so the first perfume that I ever really made my own was KL by Karl Lagerfeld, and that one I first smelled in one of those little tubes. It just seems like we always were picking up perfume samples, either me or my mom or my sister. Somebody would always pick up perfume samples in those little tubes when we went to the department store. So that's where I first said that one, found that one, and I told my mother, you have to get me some of this. And I was hooked after that. It is a beautiful, oriental, spicy kind of a fragrance, soft and fairly strong, but also fairly bright. Difficult to explain, but that was my favorite. Now that got harder and harder to find, and so then we moved on to Diva. Now, Diva is very light and bright. It's still a little oriental, but it's very bright and pretty and very feminine, and might be a little dated, to tell you the truth. I don't know. I haven't smelled it in a long time. I'm planning on getting some more when I can. But that's the story of Diva. Just a beautiful fragrance, and I recommend it. So next we're going to look at two of the perfumes that really like blew up the 80s. One is Giorgio, which I went to school in Birmingham, Michigan, and you literally could not walk outside without smelling Giorgio of Beverly Hills. Everywhere in Birmingham. And then the other one is, of course, Poison by Dior, which is heavy and gorgeous and lush and oh, so good. Both of them at the time were, I would say, about equally popular, and usually you were sort of more in tune with one or the other. I loved them both. I have to say, I smelled Giorgio recently and I was like, really? But why? So I'm going to flash a picture of those up next, and everybody knows those. I don't know anybody who doesn't know those, but in case you were wondering about those really rocked everybody's world in the 80s. So the next perfume we're going to talk about is Emerald. It was very big in the 80s. It was actually created in the 20s. 1921, I believe. It has that kind of staying power. I think they've changed the formula a few times, but this is just a beautiful, very soft, very, very well blended, just very, very beautiful, lovely perfume that is the odd color of green. But very, very nice. It wasn't one of my favorites, but it was my mother's absolute favorite. So we used to get a bottle of that for her every year. And she loved it. And many, many women do, and many women have since the 20s. So you might want to check that out as well. So the next 4 fragrances are fragrances that I really loved but never did purchase. Main reason being, as I recall, expense. My folks were people who came from poor backgrounds, who worked and clawed their way up to middle class, and they just couldn't conceive of spending $100 on 2 or 3 ounces of anything. And I still have a little of that myself. And I'm actually going to read them off the card so I don't forget them, as I tend to do when I'm making a video, as I get wrapped up in descriptions. So, okay. I sort of have these in pairs. Opium by St. Laurent. Obsession by Calvin Klein. Colors of Benetton by Benetton. And Yastis, I think is how you pronounce it, by Givenchy. And we're just going to flash those pictures up now, and then I'll get to the descriptions of them. Okay, so I think the reason that I had them in my mind sort of grouped together is that, as I recall, they're all pretty spicy, except I'm not sure about Yastis. It's been so long since I smelled it, I can't really give an accurate description, except that I loved it when I smelled it. But as far as Opium, Obsession, and Colors of Benetton, they're all spicy, as I recall, but Colors of Benetton is very kind of on the brighter side, and Yastis is also on the brighter side, and Opium and Obsession are both spicy and dark and very nice. I like all kinds of fragrances, so it's not really a judgment for me, like whether it smells bright or whether it smells deep and dark. It's the same. But anyway, those are 4 you might want to check out if you are going through like maybe some oldies and goodies and thinking about different things other than what's out there right now, just been put out. Those are all some beautiful fragrances. So I hope you enjoyed this little trip down the 80s, and there are a few from the 90s too that came up in my mind, but I guess I'll save those for another time. Thank you. See you.